My name is Elena. I used to be the sister who planned every birthday, the friend who lived for spontaneous road trips. But lately, I don't recognize the woman in the mirror. It feels like I'm living underwater. Everything is slow, muffled, and exhausting. I wake up, and before I've even opened my eyes, I feel this crushing weight on my chest, not like a heart attack, but like a heavy, wet blanket that I'm too tired to kick off. I tell myself I'm just tired, but I know it's deeper. I feel like a ghost haunting my own life, watching everyone else move in color while I stay in gray. I'm not even sad anymore. I'm just empty.
Elena's life looks perfect on a social media feed. She has a steady career, a cozy apartment filled with plants she's forgotten to water, and a group chat that pings every hour. But depression is an invisible thief. It doesn't care about her aesthetics. It has seeped into her bones, turning the simplest tasks into mountains she cannot climb. The dishes in her sink have been soaking for 4 days, the water now cold and stagnant. Her phone sits on the nightstand, vibrating with, "Are you okay?" texts that she lacks the energy to tap. To explain why she isn't showing up would require a vocabulary she hasn't found yet, so she chooses the safety of silence. In her mind, a persistent, feminine whisper tells her she is a burden, that her friends are only checking in out of obligation, and that the world is simply quieter, and better, without her moods dragging it down. It happened on a Tuesday. Elena stood in the grocery store aisle, staring at a box of tea. Suddenly, the fluorescent lights felt like an assault. The humming of the refrigerator sounded like a scream. She realized she couldn't remember the last time she felt a genuine spark of warmth in her chest. A wave of absolute hopelessness, cold and clinical, made her knees weak. She left her cart in the middle of the aisle and walked out into the rain, standing in the parking lot, letting her clothes get heavy and soaked because she simply couldn't find a reason to unlock her car.
I stood there in the rain and realized I've been waiting for a version of myself to come back and save me, but she's gone. I've pushed everyone away so far they can't even see the distress signals anymore. I'm starting to understand that this isn't just a bad week. It's a sickness. My brain is a traitor. It's telling me that this darkness is the only reality, but even as I say that, I'm terrified. I'm terrified that if I finally reach out and scream, no one will hear me. I feel so incredibly alone, even when I'm holding someone's hand.
Healing didn't start with a sudden burst of sunlight. It started with a shaking hand reaching for a phone. Elena finally called a mental health warm line. She didn't have a script, but for 40 minutes, a woman on the other end listened to her breathe. She gave Elena a name for the weight on her chest, and for the first time, the emptiness felt like something that could be filled, drop by drop. Slowly, the gray began to peel back at the edges. Elena started seeing a therapist who helped her see that her depression was a physical response to years of being the strong one who never asked for help. She began taking walks, short ones at first, just to the mailbox and back. She finally replied to one text, telling her best friend, "I'm struggling, but I'm trying." Elena is finally breathing again. The heavy air is beginning to lift. She went back to the office, she watered her dying plants, and she even felt a flicker of heat in her chest when she saw the sunset yesterday. She felt, for a moment, like Elena was returning home. But as she was clearing out a junk drawer this morning, she found an old, unopened letter from her mother, the woman whose own sadness led her to leave when Elena was only 12. Her hand trembled as she felt the weight of the paper. This new progress feels like a thin sheet of ice. Can she handle the secrets inside that envelope, or will the truth of her mother's past pull her back under the water before she's learned how to swim?
Elena thought she was finally standing on solid ground. For a few weeks, the world had regained its vibrant edges. She was eating, she was sleeping, and for the first time in years, she felt okay. But the shadow of depression is a patient predator. It waits for a moment of quiet to remind its host that the past is never truly buried. While clearing out a forgotten junk drawer, she found it, the yellowed envelope, a time capsule from the day her mother walked out 14 years ago. Elena is now a grown woman, but looking at that shaky handwriting, she is suddenly 12 years old again, standing in a silent hallway, wondering what she did wrong to make the most important person in her world disappear. As Elena slides her thumb under the seal, the progress she made in therapy feels like it's evaporating. Depression is a master of timing. It whispers that the light she found was just a temporary glitch. The letter is a confession. Her mother wasn't just sad, she was drowning in the exact same grey ocean that Elena has been fighting. The pages describe a hollow ache and a desperate need to run before the shadows swallowed the entire house. The grounding techniques Elena practiced start to fail. The 5-4-3-2-1 method cannot pull her back when the room begins to spin. She is paralyzed by a terrifying new thought: it's in my blood. She sees her mother's struggle not just as a tragedy, but as her own inevitable destiny. The weight on her chest returns, heavier than before, fueled by the fear that she is a ticking time bomb of her mother's DNA. That night, Elena stands before the bathroom mirror, splashing ice-cold water on her face to shock her system. But when she looks up, she doesn't see her own reflection. She sees her mother's tired eyes and slumped shoulders. She feels an overwhelming urge to retreat into the darkness, to cancel her appointments, and to let the heavy air take her. She is trapped between a burning anger at her mother for giving up and a paralyzing fear that she is fated to do the same. Despite the crushing weight, Elena does the one thing her mother never could: she refuses to hide the wound. She takes the letter to her next session, trembling as she places the poison on the table between her and her therapist. The realization. She begins to understand a vital truth. Her mother's mistake wasn't having depression, it was believing the lie that she had to face it alone or live to protect her family. By staying and speaking the truth out loud, Elena is already breaking the chain. She isn't repeating history, she is rewriting it with every breath she takes in the light. The anger begins to transform into a quiet, fierce resolve. Elena starts a legacy project, a journal of moments where she chose to stay, a direct defiance of her family's history of disappearing. She reaches out to her father, finally demanding the answers they both avoided for over a decade. The air is still thick. But she is learning how to swim through it without sinking. Elena stands before a house she hasn't seen since she was 5 years old. The rusted key her father gave her feels unnaturally heavy in her pocket, a physical weight pulling at her hip. For most of her life, she believed the grey ocean was a personal failure, a glitch in her own mind that she had to hide from the world. But looking at the overgrown weeds and the boarded-up windows of her family's estate, she realizes she isn't just fighting her own biology. She is standing at the threshold of a story that began decades before her first breath. As the lock finally yields with a metallic groan, the air inside the hallway feels thick and still, as if the oxygen itself is saturated with secrets. Elena follows her father's cryptic instructions to the attic, her boots thudding on the stairs like a countdown. The revelation. In the corner of the attic, tucked under a sloping eave, sits a trunk wrapped in heavy, tarnished chains. This is the secret her grandmother kept, the origin point of the silence that haunted 3 generations of women. Elena breaks the seal. Inside are not just letters, but records of a forced displacement, legal documents and frantic diaries from her grandmother's youth. She discovers that her grandmother hadn't just been melancholy, she had survived a profound, unspeakable trauma in an era where women were commanded to just get on with it. She had buried that grief so deep that it turned into a phantom limb, a pain her daughter, Elena's mother, felt but could never name. The weight wasn't a curse or a character flaw. It was unprocessed generational grief. It was a survival mechanism that had outlived its purpose, passed down like an heirloom because no one had been given the permission to weep. The magnitude of the discovery is crushing. Elena collapses onto the floor, the yellowed papers scattered around her like a shroud. She feels the familiar, terrifying urge to let the darkness win. The loneliness of her ancestors crashes over her in waves, and she gasps for air in the cold dark. How can one person fix 80 years of silence? She wonders. The heavy air fills her lungs, threatening to drag her back under the water for good. But Elena is different from the women who came before her. She has the tools they were never allowed to have. She realizes that her mother didn't leave to be cruel, she left because she thought her poison was contagious. By staying in this room and looking at the truth, Elena is doing the one thing her mother and grandmother couldn't, she is witnessing the pain instead of running from it. Transformation is not a sudden burst of sunlight, it is a slow, steady tide. Elena still has days where the world looks a bit grey. She still uses her 5-minute rule and her grounding techniques. But now, when the weight returns, she knows it is just a memory of the past, not a prophecy of her future. She returns the rusted key to her father, but she keeps the stories. She begins to plant new life in the garden of her own apartment, watering the plants she once let die. She is no longer a ghost haunting her own life, she is the architect of a new one. Depression often tells you that your pain is a mistake. But for Elena, it was a signal, a call to heal, a story that had been waiting for a voice. You are not your illness. You are the one brave enough to face it, to name it, and to finally lay the weight down. The weight in Elena's family persisted for 3 generations because it was never given a name. The story teaches us that what we refuse to speak about eventually speaks through us, in our anxiety, our depression, and our choices. Healing begins the moment we choose the discomfort of the truth over the safety of a secret. Elena spent years terrified that her mother's struggle was her destiny. The moral is that biology is not fate. While we may inherit a predisposition toward certain struggles, we also inherit the strength of those who survived before us. By seeking help and using modern tools, therapy, grounding, and community, you can end a cycle that has lasted for decades. Elena's mother left because she believed her presence was poison. This is the ultimate deception of a dark mind, the idea that you are protecting others by disappearing. The story shows that connection is the antidote. By showing her wounds to her therapist and her father, Elena found that the weight became lighter the moment it was shared. The story doesn't end with Elena being cured perfectly, it ends with her having a better relationship with her struggle. The lesson is that recovery is a daily practice. It's in the 5-minute rules, the watering of plants, and the decision to stay present even when the air feels heavy. Your struggle is not a sign of your weakness, it is often a signal that a deeper story needs to be heard. You are not broken, you are the one brave enough to finally listen. Elena's story reminds us that we are often carrying weights that were never ours to hold. But the moment we stop running from the shadows is the moment they lose their power over us. If you feel like you are living underwater, remember, you are not a burden, and you are not your illness. You are the one brave enough to stay. You are the one who breaks the chain. If Elena's journey touched your heart, or if you've ever felt the weight of your own heavy air, please let us know in the comments. Your story might be the light someone else needs today. And if you want to walk with us through more stories of healing and hope, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. By joining us, you're helping us build a community where no one has to face the darkness alone. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next chapter.